David Heurtel standing by, former Quebec Liberal cabinet minister. David, what do you want to start with today?
We can start with Bondi if you
Okay.
want. I think they're important things. You obviously raised them throughout the show. But looking at Montreal, I was reviewing it in preparing for this evening. As you know, this is not the first time we're having this conversation, and unfortunately, it will not be the last. And before the October 7th attacks, we were already talking about the story being that anti-Semitic violent acts were significantly on the rise in Montreal. After the October 7th attacks, it became exponential.
Yeah.
And I was looking, Dominique Leblanc, the federal cabinet minister at the time for public security, meeting with François Bonnardel, the provincial cabinet minister responsible for public security, talking with Mayor Plante, Fadi Daguerre, chief of police, and what has happened since? Yes, we have a new mayor, we have a new administration, we still have the same chief of police. But it kind of reminds me of what happens every time there is a mass shooting in the U.S. The old line now that's being criticized. I mean, we hear thoughts and prayers, and then for 24 hours, and then nothing happens concretely. It's a completely different debate. It's about gun control, et cetera, et cetera. But what I'm saying is the reaction is starting to become the same. And at some point, and I think we're far beyond that point, in my personal opinion, there needs to be more than just symbolism. Symbolism is important. Statements are important from the prime minister, from the premier, from ministers, from the mayor. But there has to be more than just symbolism and statements. I think we need now, especially with the new municipal administration, we need to see the mayor. We need the new responsible for public security at the executive committee, Mayor Jim Bass. We need Fadi Daguerre, chief of police, to sit down and tell Montrealers, not just the Jewish community, but first and foremost the Jewish community, but Montrealers, because we're all horrified. It's all about us. We're all citizens. This is major. This is directly affecting us as a community. We need to understand what is being done, because we have here, I've tried to find, Aaron, have we made significant arrests with regards to the Jewish schools and synagogues being shot up and bombs thrown at them, firebombs thrown at them over the last few years? No. We were told we were stepping it up in terms of efforts, but all federally, provincially, and municipally. But I think we need to understand what are the steps, the measures that are being taken to make sure that our community is safe. Because if part of our community is not safe, all of us are not safe. And so this I think this is yet again an opportunity. I hope this one will not be missed for our public officials that are responsible for public security to show us what is going to be done to make sure that incidents like Bondi, but it doesn't have to go to the extent of Bondi, don't happen. And what is being doing in terms of prevention, and what is being done in terms of cracking down on anti-Semitism in our community.
To your point, David, and I brought this up when I asked listeners about, are we doing enough to what you're discussing right now? Mm-hmm. I remember Fadi Daguerre sitting in the same studio, and when I asked about arrests, because people were looking at each other going, when the protests were happening literally every day, mm-hmm. Have there been arrests? Because if there have been, we're not hearing about them. They're not in media. Nothing. Mm-hmm. To which he told me there have been arrests, but the problem then becomes, prosecutors decide not to go ahead and charge these people because they don't think they can win the case, or judges choose to simply say, okay, I can't be bothered, no one's going to jail, and dismiss them.
Well, then you change the laws.
Right.
Then when laws, laws follow society. Laws aren't ahead of society. And like, for example, there was a time where there was no hate crime legislation. And society evolved, and hate speech, violent speech, and is now an offense. But there was a time where it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so the idea here is that, like, for example, the hate speech law statute, the provisions in the criminal code, there's an exception for religious speech. We need to have that debate. And it was jump-started last year and the year before, and since the October 7th attacks, when we heard, some hate speech and some violent speech that was shrouded into religious discourse, and therefore, yes, at that time, police and prosecutors could not move forward because they didn't feel they could win it because of the religious speech exemption. So we need to go beyond that and say, okay, do we need to evolve the legislation? Do we need to evolve? And also, there's that debate, and that's a totally valid and important question you're raising, Aaron. But also, what is being done with technology? For example, look at Bondi Beach. I mean, Australia has very restrictive weapons laws,
right,
gun laws. And these were not, unsophisticated weapons that were used. And so what I'm saying here is that what is being done to track, to control, and to speech on social media, what is being done to track and control illegal arms sales, what is being done. There's a lot of different things that I think we need to know about. It's not only that, all these questions should be raised, but also we haven't heard from Fatih Daguerre about what is being done. And I'm not talking about specific investigations and revealing things that would hurt investigations, but what is being done? What is actually how does Jim Bass feel about it? What does Soraya Martinez feel like she should be doing? What provincially can be done legislatively? What federally can be done legislatively?
Let's hope that follow-through exists, because I think, as you do, obviously, that's what's missing right now is that follow-through. Words are nice, but you don't want to...
And I'm not criticizing what has been said and done.
No.
But I'm just saying there's the other piece, which is concrete action.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we need that conversation.
Yeah, I don't want to... No one wants it to be performative, right? You're saying it for a reason. Now follow and tell us what you're going to do based on what you've said. So let's hope that's what's coming next. David, I don't want to run out of time, and I want to give you a chance to weigh in because I'm a little confused here. We had another Conservative member cross the floor, Michael Ma. He's now sitting as a Liberal a day after he smiled and told Pierre Poilievre, I think you're great. Now he's sitting with Mark Carney. Now, explain how this works. They're one seat short of a majority. So if another MP, whether a Conservative or an NDP, was to cross the floor, they would have a majority. Yeah. Would that make a difference then into when the next election would be? Because I think it was Tom Mulcair, someone talking this morning saying we could conceivably, don't think about it now because it just happened, we could be in a federal election by next year.
Well, we could technically be in a federal election by next year. Again, it's all about if you have a majority government, then you control also the committees, right? And so the confidence motion automatically does not pass. So now you're looking at basically a 4-year term, not being at every budget or at the mercy of a confidence motion. Now next year, I'm not sure. I'm not so sure that NDP members and everybody else is going to want to go, because if you're talking about next year, 2026, the problem is if you're going to go federally, you have to go in the spring, because the fall is the Quebec election, and so nobody, it's not in the blocks. It's in nobody's interest to schedule a federal election. You have to play around that, and that can complexify things. So. If they get another seat, yes. But again, it's not necessarily in the interest of anybody to go at this point. I mean, right now, think about this. Even with what happened with Stephen Guilbeault and Mark Miller or anything else, the latest polling, and this is very, very important in my opinion on how Quebecers, I'm talking about Francophone Quebecers also here, how Quebecers and politics is evolving. I mean, even with Guilbeault, even Mark Miller, even with Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon, right now, the most popular political party in Quebec are the federal Liberals. And the most popular politician in Quebec is Mark Carney.
Well, huh?
So I'm just saying.
Yeah.
And it can change. But today, and after all of this and all we're saying, he's still in the 40s, in the low 40s in Quebec. And so, so talk about the environment and everything else. But I'm just saying, January we'll see. The next big step politically is Pierre Poilievre's leadership convention,
which is in January, right?
There you go.
We shall see.
We'll see there as well, and that will also tell us a lot if it's still a minority government by then, how the spring is going to look politically for Mark Carney.
David Heurtel. David, thank you very much. Appreciate it as always.
Have a great week.
Take care, you too.
Introducing Bryan Adams Radio on iHeartRadio.
Got my first real six-string.
Hosted by Bryan Adams himself.
Join me for an insider look on a wild ride through 40 years of global rock and roll.
Bryan Adams Radio. Now available on the free iHeartRadio app. Or ask your smart speaker to play Bryan Adams Radio on iHeartRadio.
Who's ready to rock?
Everywhere I go, kids wanna rock.